What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Slice. On today's episode, we are going to discuss college tennis during a pandemic. To do so, I bought in the one and only former Minnesota golfer, or golfer, I'm not sure how you say it, I get confused, Tobias
Golfer now.
Wernet.
Former golfer now.
What'd you say?
I said former golfer, golfer now though.
Yeah, former. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Things are well. I can't complain. I can't complain. Living the dream with toss and spin.
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And before we get started on obviously the subject, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Tobias Wernet from Germany. Moved from an elite school of sport to focus more on tennis at the age of 16. Played a lot of ITF. Played second Bundesliga in Germany. Was recruited by 5 schools in the U.S. Came over, chose the Minnesota Gophers. Played for them, went to business school and landed a job at Microsoft out of Charlotte. And then I was with Microsoft in New York and now back in Minneapolis and have been there 8.5 years. Married, have a 1-year-old. That's a bit about me.
Nice, nice. And what really caught my eye was the open letter you wrote. And I mean, obviously, the pandemic has hurt everything from high school, college, pro sports. But the one thing that really caught my eye was just what's happening in college tennis. I mean, I think there's been over, 25 total men's tennis programs that are now no longer, there's over 1,500 athletes that have been displaced or deciding if they are going to continue playing varsity sports. And I just wanted to know, I saw the news on the University of Minnesota and wanted to get your thoughts and feedback on the why behind the letter and what was your goal with it?
My goal was really with the letter was to really educate the regions, right? There's 12 regions that sit on the board kind of overseeing the University of Minnesota. Um, I thought, they were tapping a little bit in the dark in terms of what they were voting on. I think the athletic department put forth a proposal to cut men's gymnastics, outdoor and indoor men's track and field, and then men's tennis as well. And the proposal was put in front of the regions a day before the vote. I think the regions did a great job to say, hey, we're not ready to vote today because we just saw this yesterday, but we will vote on it next month. So, from that point on, it was very clear. These are the decision makers. These are the people that are representing the community. These are the people that represent us, right? And so our job was really to educate them and influence their due diligence and make sure they know every fact and every point that we can bring to them. And so you read my open letter on LinkedIn, and we sent a version that was even a little bit more detailed to all the regions. Had many conversations with the regions as well leading up to the vote. We thought we had the votes we needed. I don't know how closely you followed the vote, but the night before the vote, outdoor track and field, indoor track and field, I think was taken out of the proposal. You have to verify that again, but one of the track and fields was taken out, which then my guess is that changed one of the region's votes, and we lost 5-7 in favor of the proposal put forth by the athletic department.
Yeah, yeah. I
I think
mean,
it's indoor track and field actually.
okay.
So.
Now, was that decision final right away? Like it's done with?
Yes, I mean that depends, right? Now, if we want to get back in the game, I think we need to a game changer forth, right? Which could be a major donation, right? Or us sitting down with the athletic department to find a solution, from a legal perspective, from a financial perspective, from a Title IX perspective. Those are kind of the things that I think the athletic department is looking at. So it's not off the table. We're still working on bringing the program back, but we do need a breakthrough at this point.
Yeah, yeah, and that's to me that's really really unfortunate. As a player, I played for the University of Toledo, and we played a couple
Good
different
player, by the way.
What'd you say?
I said good player, by the way. I was talking with Coach Young this morning, and I was like, I'm talking with Chris this afternoon. He played Dino in a 3-set match. He's like, I remember that match.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, that was one of my best matches, but good memories, man. And it's really sad because I really feel like college tennis it's a big part of me and was a big part of my life. And I
Sure.
lose that nostalgia if it goes away and the program goes away. And so just thinking about all the programs 25 plus that have been now cut is really sad. And the one thing that gets me, and I saw this in your open letter, you talked a little bit about, is just how small the financial impact it is to take away tennis in the overall scheme of things. Now, universities all have different budgets, right? Conferences, Big Ten obviously has a bigger budget than the MAC, but the proportion of what tennis makes up from a financial perspective is very, very small. And the way I look at it, it's almost like we did something right. Like the board should be happy, not like we did the right thing. We looked at the right things to cut and just outlining, like I think it was 0.7% of the
Hmm.
athletic budget comes from tennis. And then there was, for you, I think you said something like $5 million and other expenses added. So, it's just unfortunate when I think about that. But I definitely think the letter and the way you wrote it and posting on LinkedIn, obviously, it brought a lot of attention to what's happening. Um, and for me, it's about figuring out, how do you change something like that? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys had great donors with the Baseline Tennis Club and different things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm part of the board of the Baseline Club. We're very fortunate.
Yeah.
You know, uh, Minnesota tennis has really been the poster child nationally of how to fund and endow and run a tennis program. That's why this is just so heartbreaking, not just for this community in Minnesota, but for college tennis really nationally, at a national level. You're exactly right. Kind of looking at the all-up budget. Tennis makes up at Minnesota 0.7% of the all-up budget of just over 120 million. And so, and then if you compare and kind of look at the profit and loss analysis or statement, right, and you do see expenses for salaries, for example, spiking from $9 million to $21 million from 2012 to 2019. And then kind of the, keeping up with the Joneses and building new facilities, even though you may not be able to afford them. If you look at the debt services that Minnesota has, they doubled from 2017 to 2019. And so that's, I think, unfortunate, is that I think there's a lot of financial decisions that are being made, maybe a little bit of financial mismanagement. And then it's at the expense of future dreams and future opportunities.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. Keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, unfortunately, that's what every university, in my opinion, is trying to do. They're trying to show that they're better than the next school and better than the next school, and many of them are taking on, like, of course, they have investors and people who are donating or donors, but they're taking on way too much debt. And the problem is they don't have really a business that's pandemic proof. So you run into situations like this where you're like, okay, we have to cut something because we now have even more debt. But I just, I just don't think tennis is the way. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be a conversation that continues to happen over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're kind of aware of the name, image, likeness that's out there. I think that's a big monster that's looming for
Yeah.
college athletes to potentially get paid in the future. And again, kind of going back to my profit loss analysis, but I'm not sure if schools are going to pull in more revenue. But once they have to start, paying athletes, that's going to, add to their costs as well. And to me, that's another big red flag for really any non-revenue or Olympic sports.
Yeah. And in what world do you see the athletic, the men's tennis team coming back potentially?
Yeah, I think, if not more programs are getting cut, well, if we get through this pandemic and, football is doing well for schools and fans are in the seats, I think we may be okay. But the message that I would have for any college non-revenue program, we're talking about tennis here, but don't take it for granted if your athletic department says you're good. go out and be proactive. Really look at ways to make your program sustainable. The three tiers that I always look at is first look at your scholarships, and can you endow your scholarships. The second tier to me is really the coaching salaries, and then the third tier is operations, right? Your travel, your expenses, um, your equipment, those types of things. So really, take it in your own hand. And again, in Minneapolis, we've been super fortunate to have a big city, to have a big community. We came up with a pledge of $1.3 million within 4 days,
Wow.
to bring our total endowment to 2.5 million. Obviously, that didn't make a difference with the regions, and we're still working on that. But not every school is in that position, right? There's a lot of schools that are not in major cities.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the scary thing for me, and just talking with a few friends that are coaches, the real scary thing for me is what's going to happen if we're, having this conversation again in 2021 in fall. You know what I mean? If stadiums only can come back to 50%. Um, and we have a budget loss obviously at Toledo as well, but we're holding on just because we don't have that many sports. I think we have 16 varsity sports.
Mhm.
But what's going to happen if we can only fill the football stadium 50% capacity? I mean, I think we're on the verge of a major breakdown in all of college sports, where there could be only, after the dust settles, there may be the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the ACC, the SEC. I mean, the reality is those could be the conferences that ultimately make up college sports.
Mhm.
The majority of schools may just say, let's just do away with it all because it's just too expensive. So, and
Mhm.
that could also, I mean, thinking, worst case scenario, how much do colleges exist in the future? Like what colleges exist? Because with virtual learning and things like that. So I mean, we're on the verge of like just this huge transition, which for me is, I mean, is a bit scary. Like I would never want, again, I would, same thing you're doing. If I heard Toledo was going to go away, I would do everything possible to see the program could still stay alive because of the experience and what it gave me as a player, as a person, and how I still use that in my day-to-day life. So,
Mhm. For sure.
and I think for you, just, you talked a little bit about this, but what do you think about when the dust settles? Like what are your thoughts on college tennis, college sports, you name it?
When you say the dust settles, to me, that's really, at the end of the season. I mean, we're going to have a tennis program till the end of the season, and this decision is heartbreaking. But what's even more heartbreaking is I think all the people that are involved with this. Coach Young, Coach Urban, the assistant coach, um, and just the community of players this program has produced that now live in Minneapolis, and we get together all the time. And you know to see that go away is just devastating, and to for players not to have that opportunity going forward. um like I said, I think if you are coaching or part of a non-revenue sport or part of a booster club, really be proactive, and also seek active feedback. The part about Minnesota that was a bit disappointing is that was a sudden decision. There was no feedback given to say, hey, instead of we're going to cut our entire budget by 2% and we're going to cut three sports, can maybe all sports work together and everyone cuts 2% of their budget, right? And to really give active feedback to these teams. We looked at our budget, and we said, hey, immediately we said, hey, we think we can run our program with $100,000 less, if not more. Um, and so, really be proactive, go out there, and, have a conversation with your administrators, have a conversation with your athletic director, to really see what your financial situation is, and take it in your own hands to be proactive about it. I think that's all we can do. Um, that's within the control of the tennis programs and the coaches and the staff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's well said. And also for me, I think about it, and I'm just like, it's a day-to-day thing. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring. I hear it's a pretty big day today, but
Mhm.
again, you never know what the future holds. So it's
Mhm.
about really building those banks of small wins, and um, of course, I'm rooting for all the programs, especially the University of Minnesota. and all the programs to find a way to figure it out and hope they survive just because of the experience and what they give student athletes. I mean, it's not just, during your 4 years, yes, it's tennis and friends and in that bond, but after that, you realize it was so much more than that and something you can take with you the rest of your life. And
Hmm.
uh, it's something that every athlete who has the opportunity to play, I want them to have that experience as well.
Yeah. Now, if we want to shoot for the stars, maybe we can think about a model where the tennis channel starts broadcasting college tennis, and we just get more TV exposure. And we from a non-revenue sport, maybe we just go to a revenue-generating sport. But those are some big conversations to hopefully be had somewhere at some point.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, honestly, first and foremost, this was great to catch up with you. It's been way too long.
Likewise.
I was telling actually I was telling my wife how he used to beat me handedly while we played in Charlotte, but it was always good to get a sweat even back then. And I can't believe it's been about 9 years ago. So, but thanks for making the time to jump on. All the best to you and your family. And I'm going to follow the news and see where if the dust settles to some extent, where everything lands. So all the best.
Absolutely. I'll keep you in the loop, Chris, and all the best to you and your family. Stay well, stay healthy, and thanks for having me.
All right. Take it easy.
You too. Bye bye.